Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Lynn Dome. I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WiCyS, WiCyS is how we spell it. And we pronounce it WiCyS, like we sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We're a global cyber sisterhood. So our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We're so happy to have here today an Accenture team, a strategic partner of ours, and they're going to be presenting on exploring cybersecurity at Accenture. So before we dive into the conversation, I just want to, go over a little bit more about the WiCyS organization. We're a global member-based organization with over 6,500 members, representation in over 70 countries. We also have 54 professional affiliates, which are mini WiCyS organizations, and they're all throughout Africa, Australia, Canada, France, India, Pakistan, Norway, the UK, and throughout the United States. We have WiCyS MITRE and WiCyS Lockheed Martin, and we also have affiliates around specialty topics such as artificial intelligence, cloud security, critical infrastructure, data privacy, and cybersecurity law. We have the WiCyS BSIL, WiCyS Neurodiversity, Colors of Inclusion, LGBTQ plus Pride, Latina, military, and so many more. And on top of all of that, we have almost 220 student chapters, with Microsoft Philanthropies funding a big, huge global student chapter initiative. So that's just our community alone. What we do is we provide opportunities. So we have skill development training programs that are funded by Google, Meta, Bloomberg, SANS Institute, Target, AWS, ISE Squared, Fortinet, and so many others. We have an online member forum where all our members can network and connect. We offer scholarships, grants, and awards not only to our conference, which is coming up March 16th through the 18th at the Gaylord Rockies in Denver, Colorado, which is a sweet spot to be, but also to other conferences as well. Our Cyber Talent Emergency Fund is available for students under financial situations. They could receive up to $599 within 48 hours in case they have a medical emergency or they can't afford their rent or their car breaks down. We don't want anything to hold anyone up from advancing in their cybersecurity education. And then speaking and media opportunities are available for our professionals. The Job Board Plus Plus is a place where all our strategic partners, including Accenture, recruits from, and all our members have an opportunity to upload their profiles, upload their resumes, and get recruited from it. We have a veteran apprenticeship program, an internship program. We participate in market research, leadership summits, leadership series, speakers bureau, a mentor-mentee program, which enrollment's going to be opening back up again in March. All that and so much more. So if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter. It's on our website. If you go to WiCyS.org, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, you could subscribe to our newsletter. But we owe all of that thanks to our strategic partners. Of course, Accenture that brings us this webinar here today, and then our partners AWS, Battelle, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Fortinet, Google, Intel, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Microsoft, Optum, Syndia, National Labs, and SentinelOne, and then our Tier 2 and all our Tier 3 partners too. So this is a great opportunity for you to ask all your questions. We have this fabulous group of Accenture team here, and they're going to be talking about exploring cybersecurity at Accenture. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat for you to put your questions in, and everyone's going to get to those questions at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic on over to Mackenzie, and she's going to take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. And hi, everyone. Welcome. We're really excited to spend some time with you this afternoon and talk through cybersecurity at Accenture. We have a great group here and a couple different perspectives that we'll be providing. Before we introduce ourselves, I just want to quickly go through our agenda. So we'll give a quick overview of Accenture overall. I know some of you may be familiar with Accenture and some of you may not. So we wanted to provide a little context of who we are and what we do. Then we'll also jump into an overview of security consulting at Accenture. So Rachel and Raquel will take us through that section. And then I will jump into the cybersecurity in the life sciences industry and a little bit of information, what we do there, and a client case study that we can get into as well. And as Lynn mentioned, we'll then wrap up with some Q&A at the end. And you can put any of your questions throughout the entire session in that little question box. So now we can each introduce ourselves. Rachel, if you want to kick off.
Sure thing. Thanks, Mackenzie, and thanks, Lynn and WiCyS, for having us here today. We're really excited to talk to you guys about Accenture and what security looks like here at our company. So to introduce myself, I'm Rachel Phillips-Wright. I'm a senior manager in our security strategy practice. I've been in consulting for a little over 13 years now. I got my start originally in technology consulting. I was specialized and focused on large enterprise cloud transformations back when cloud was really nascent in the late 2000s. And that took me across the world. I spent several years living abroad in Amsterdam as an expat, which was a ton of fun. And after I came home to the States, after a few years, I pivoted and moved into the security space by joining Accenture. I was actually first part of our cyber R&D lab, where I led our client engagement program. Then we opened up a cyber fusion center in Washington, D.C. I led the client engagement program at that space as well. And a lot of what we did there was security strategy work, and I really fell in love with that. And that's the space I've been in for the last several years. All right, Mackenzie, back to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie Hornibrook. I'm a manager in the life sciences supply chain practice at Accenture. So I've actually been with Accenture the last 5 years. I dabbled in a couple of different industries, several different clients before finding my home in life sciences. Over the last couple of years, I've worked with some of our major pharmaceutical clients. And during this time, I've had the opportunity to work in the cybersecurity space, which has really been interesting and impactful experience for me. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that later in today's session. I'll turn it over to Raquel.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Hi, everyone. My name is Raquel Werner, and I am a security strategy consultant at Accenture. And I actually started, this is actually my first job or how I start my career after university. So I graduated with a degree in industrial engineering, and I learned about Accenture. And once I started, I've always felt very supported to try different things until I was able to eventually find what I really liked, which was also the security strategy that Rachel mentioned. So I've actually gotten to work alongside her and her team for about a year now, and it's been really great. I've gotten to do a lot of different things. There's a ton of different industries and clients that we serve, and you'll get to hear about that later. And something else I'd like to point out is that I feel at Accenture there's not only opportunities to try new things, but also I felt very supported in like the learning and upskilling of that time, which I'm grateful for. Okay, and I think with that, I will take us to the next slide. So what is Accenture? So our purpose is to deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. And if you ever hear any of our earnings calls, you'll definitely hear our CEO, Julie Sweet, say this. And basically, this is something that really drew me to Accenture because I like the fact that, yes, technology is important. And yes, we have to think about how we can advance our clients even more than they're even thinking or they might think is possible. But also it's important to keep the human aspect of it. So there's a lot of different things that we have at Accenture, basically programs and ideologies that we try to use. So one of those being truly human, meaning that, everyone on your team should ask you what hey, what flexibility do you need? What kind of accommodations might you need? Do you have any special holidays coming up? And I know like last year, actually working for Rachel, that was one of the things that she asked our whole team, like, well, what do you all need like out of this year, which I really appreciated and felt was a great benefit and something I really admired. Okay, so then Accenture overall, we're a global professional services company or a consulting company. A lot of people think of us as an SAP integration company, but we really do a lot of different things across our 5 offerings, which are strategy and consulting, technology, operations, song, and Industry X. And what we do across all those industries is really, for the most part, end-to-end capabilities. And I know we'll get into a little bit more of specific Accenture security stuff later. So one of the things I'll touch on here is that Accenture is a top employer overall. And for example, this year we were ranked number 6 on the Fortune magazine, Best Places to Work. And we were also ranked the Company of the Year for Latina Style magazine, as well as the number 1 company to work for Latinas from that magazine as well. And I believe 2 of our top leaders were initiated into their Hall of Fame recently, which was really cool for me to see as a Latino person that to see people in my company succeeding and being supported and thriving as their identity. And specifically, there's a lot of efforts throughout IND, and I feel that the women's initiatives as well exist. So there is a 50-50 gender parity that they're trying to meet. I think we're right at or basically there, 50-50 at Accenture, which is awesome for me. As you know, as I said, I grew up in Accenture, but I've also had coworkers tell me that they have been at other consult or security companies and they were the only woman on their team. So I think that's something I really admire too. And there's some statistics here. I won't drain the slide. I'm sure you've all gotten a chance to read those over. Okay. And then Accenture Security itself is a really big part of Accenture, because not only do we support our security clients specifically, but we also have the ability to work across the different functions I mentioned. So S&C and greater technology, as well as operations and Industry X. So actually I started in the Industry X practice, which is our engineering group. And that's actually where I became aware of security. Through that, I had to partner with, on my client team, I had to partner with Accenture resources who were more focused in security so that we could work together to best deliver for the client. And that idea of delivering across all of our functions is called the One Accenture, which I think if through this presentation, like when McKinsey is giving her presentation, you'll see that that really is the case. And we are able to work in a way that enables our clients to get the best of security, no matter what teams they're really start with. They'll always get, hopefully the best teams put together from the accounts. And let's see, we have a lot of experience in this space. There's over 3,100 clients that we serve. And like I mentioned, the industries are also very broad. I think that Rachel's going to get to the most interesting part soon about how we actually deliver that work. But here, just one more thing to touch on, I think, like I said, we are able to deliver at scale. And a big part of that is because of our partnerships with all the major, anything from cloud providers to pen testing companies and everything in between. We really have really great partnerships, and our clients trust us to help them choose the best vendor and the best partners for them because of our expansive partnerships. We're not going to just say, oh yeah, you should use this product because I work at XYZ company. We're really looking at it from, okay, what does my client need? Put myself in their shoes and how can I best serve them? And with that, I will pass it over to Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Raquel. Yeah, so that was kind of a by the numbers, a high level look at our security practice. As Raquel said, Accenture globally, we're about 700,000 people in our security practice. We're about 16,000 of that population around the world. So we've grown, I've been here 7 years now, we've grown quite a bit. It used to just be a handful of us. It felt like 1,000 or so. So neat to see us as we've grown over the years. So I want to talk a bit about what Accenture Security does. We talk about our security offerings. And over the past 20 years, right through the firm and various teams doing security work in little pockets before our security practice formally came together several years ago. We feel we've put together some offerings here that are kind of unmatched in industry. And Raquel was sort of alluding to this, is what makes this truly unique is we can partner with clients end to end, right? So some companies are more focused on the strategy side. Other companies are focused on maybe outsourcing or managed services, and we can do everything end to end and in between. So we can define strategies and architectures through our consulting services. We can go and implement those things, and we can even run those things in our managed services teams. And we do all of this through an industry lens to try to make it really specific and unique to our each individual client. So there's 4 boxes you see here, and these are kind of our 4 capability areas. So on the top there, you'll see cyber industry services. So in this group, we really tailor solutions to emerging industry-specific needs, risks, threats, regulatory concerns, et cetera. And we do all that with a focus on the industry value chain. So when we say value chain, we're talking about end to end. What are the pieces of the business that make money, right? So we use that as a lens to guide us when working in different industries to understand how that company makes money and how we can protect that value, right? So a specific part of the cyber industry capability that I also want to call attention to is one that spans across multiple industries. And this is where we help our clients secure their cyber physical systems, including industrial control systems or ICS technology, process control systems, connected products, things in the IT and OT or operational technology environments, right? So if you think about, oil and gas and technology out in the field, drills, rigs, things like that, but also manufacturing. Those are things we think of when we think of operational technology or OT environments. So moving down to the left, we have Cyber Strategy Group. So in this group, and that's where I sit and Raquel as well, we work with boards and C-suite executives, really trying to focus on protecting corporate value, that business value, like I said, the value chain, right, end to end of how a company makes money, and help them accelerate digital transformation by aligning kind of cyber risk strategies with their business priorities, right? So, there's security exists in organizations to help protect the business. Without a business, right, there's nothing to protect. We're not there to just make email safe. We're there to enable the business to grow, right? So that's really where we help companies focus in this team, is how to meet the business's priorities and growth objectives, and marry the security efforts and objectives to that bigger business priorities that the C-suite and the board is focused on. And I think we're seeing a big shift in the last few years where security isn't a cost center, but security is a business enabler. So we're really trying to help our clients, through that shift and become a part of the business executive community, and working with those boards and C-suites, not just as a subset of the IT organization, but a key player to enabling business value. And also in this team, right, we focus on the security organization itself through things like assessments, cyber strategic planning, organizational design and strategy. So, what is like the operating model of the security team, things like that. We also work on cyber metrics and executive reporting, et cetera. So then moving over to the center, we have what we call our cyber protection group. And in this team, we help our clients kind of protect the business as it transforms. So think of this more as kind of like the hands-on keyboard, maybe more technical folks. This is where we try to bring zero trust principles, right, to the center and securing the entire foundation of every company, right? So the digital workforce, cloud, network, our devices at the edge, platforms, applications, AI, internal data, customer data, et cetera, right? So that's what that team is primarily focused on. And also within that group, though, we do have a team that's focused on what we call emerging technologies. So thinking about how do we secure things like the metaverse, or what are the security implications of quantum computing. So it's a really kind of neat and interesting team that focuses on some really future-looking things. And then finally, at the right, we have our Cyber Resilience team. And this is the team that really helps their clients improve their defensive posture, using things like threat intelligence, making sure they're aware of the latest threats that may be relevant to their specific business, their industry, things like that. And we also help them kind of fight like they train and train like they fight, right? We have red team and blue team services I'll talk about a little bit, where we actually have real life hackers that come in and help our clients test their defenses. And also in this team, right, we help our clients, respond quickly and effectively when an attack does happen, right? I think a lot of people understand the mindset. It's not a matter of if you'll be breached, but when. And it's not from a scare tactic perspective, but just a realistic perspective. So we can help our clients think through, okay, like, what am I going to do? Like, let's not wait till a crisis to figure out what needs to be done. Who do we have to call? How do we get through this? But let's be proactive and plan ahead. So kind of the 4 capability areas. And our clients tell us, there's kind of 3 big reasons why they value this portfolio of services, right? So the first is, as we said, we can be a true partner because we help our clients end to end. We don't just come in and do the paper-based assessment or develop a strategy that might not be realistic without realizing it and walk away. We have teams that stay and implement that strategy through our transformation teams. And then we actually can help our clients run things through our managed services on a global scale. And the second thing we hear from clients is that we're really focused on their actual business problems. For example, we don't just focus on compliance, or as Raquel said, right, like we use this tool, we partner with this specific company, so that's what we're going to recommend. We have a lot of ecosystem partnerships, and we take a very agnostic approach. So we're able to assemble the right set of offerings that are really going to address the risks and threats and security challenges specific to the client's business and industry. And then lastly, right, is the power of being a 700,000 person company across the globe, right? We have kind of unmatched breadth and depth of talent, technology, and scale across all of our areas. So that's kind of what we do for clients, but I also wanted to touch on this from a career perspective and point out, we don't really stay boxed into these silos. Like, yes, each of us in the security practice are assigned to a specific group. As I mentioned earlier, right, I'm in the cyber strategy practice, but we aren't really limited to just one group. So building connections and skills outside of our alignment is actually really encouraged. So for me personally, with a technical background and experience in cloud transformation, I naturally gravitated towards the work that's being done in the zero trust space. So for the past 3 years, actually, I partnered with that team a lot to create and sell and deliver more strategy focused and functional zero trust type of capabilities. So things like, what is the zero trust operating model that can best enable organizations in that new way of approaching security? What are ways of developing use cases for zero trust implementations so people can start to pilot that approach? Helping client teams get executive stakeholder alignment from areas outside of security. Zero trust requires, input and collaboration from many folks across the business, right? So things like that. And another example of how I work across the practice areas, I spent time, as I said earlier in my intro, running the client program at our Cyber Fusion Center, which is a center that brings together a lot of our cyber defense and cyber resilience capabilities. And that's where our red team and blue team lives, right? So red team are kind of the hackers, the offense that our clients hire to test their defenses in real time. A stat that's maybe good or bad, depending on what side you're looking at it from. That team has a 100% success rate in breaching clients during those engagements. So they're rock stars. We also have our blue team, right? So that's the defense, the team you would call when you had a breach. The emergency response, boots on the ground, investigation, cleanup crew who gets on scene in a matter of hours, deploys specialty hardware, starts to assess the situation, does digital forensics, malware analysis, getting the bad guys out of the environment, closing up the weak spots that allow them to get in, and getting things back to operation. So as I was saying, right, the center I worked in had a heavy focus on those teams, or as you see them reflected on the slide, the cyber attack simulation and crisis incident response teams. So I really like the work that those teams do and find it really fascinating and try to find opportunities to collaborate with them when I can. So in the past year, I built some capabilities that accelerate some of their ransomware readiness work and developed an approach to help them work with clients to do lessons learned or post-mortem sessions for when clients have been cleaning up after a breach and are looking for ways to improve their defenses and actually improve their response to future breaches. So all that to say, there's a lot of flexibility in shaping your career at Accenture and what you work on here, which is one of the things I really love about how our program and security practice operates. So on to the next slide, just a quick look at, we talk about industries. Here's kind of some of the unique industries and how we focus on them. So a lot of times we hear things, from people, not security people, but maybe people who sit in different roles in the organization. They'll say things like, oh, well, I'm just ABC company. I just make widgets. Like no one ever would bother with a widget company. Like I'm not a bank. We don't save lives. I'm not critical infrastructure. Why would we be a target? And so, we don't believe that's the right mindset. Security professionals know the reality of cyber attacks today is every industry can be a target. So cyber criminals may not care about widgets, sure, but they might care about your suppliers or the customer data you have, or just interrupting whatever it is you do, even if it's just making widgets, in order to, put ransomware in place and extort you and make you pay up so you can get your business running again. So we take an industry-focused approach to security by having people in our practice who are actually dedicated and focused on a specific industry. So people that specialize in financial services security. And so those people are really aware of the unique security risks, threats, vulnerabilities, regulatory requirements, et cetera, that are unique to that industry. And, beyond that, our security practice isn't just, we aren't the only ones working to secure our clients, right? So we work together with people like McKinsey, who has specialized subject matter expertise in supply chain management, and bring those sort of people together with security folks when we're helping secure the organization. So it's a combination of industry-focused security expertise and deep specialty subject matter knowledge that I think really strengthens the work that we do for our clients. So on that note, I wanted to just talk about a couple of quick client stories before handing things over to McKinsey to take us on a deeper dive into one of her recent client engagements. So the first one here is a global products client. So we first got engaged with this client when they were in the middle of an extended cyber incident. So beyond the blue team kind of technical capabilities and response I talked about, which is more technical stuff, we do also what we call crisis management. So this is really focused on helping companies from like a functional and business perspective when they're responding to a cyber breach. So in large-scale cyber incidents, there's an incredible amount of around-the-clock communication, orchestration that happens in the first days and weeks after the incident. There's, the board of directors wants to be up to speed. The C-suite needs to be up to speed. There's external law enforcement you may be required to report to. There's external media. If it gets leaked to the press, you're going to have to deal with public relations. You're going to have to communicate to your customers. You're going to have to communicate to your staff. You might have, other regulatory concerns you need to consider about the timeliness of reporting the breach to certain entities, on and on, right? So the focus with crisis management is on this side of the house and keeping everything in sync with the boots on the ground security team and the blue teams, right, who are, more hands on keyboards on the technical side of things as the situation evolves. So that was the work that we were doing to help this client initially. And as the dust was settling, right, the new CISO knew that this was a moment they could capitalize on in order to secure funding needed to transform their security program, right? Like after a breach is the time a lot of companies go, well, now's the time we can get funding and our board will really pay attention to us because they know what this can, what the implications of weak security actually mean now. It makes it real for folks. So the CISO had a very short window of opportunity and they weren't quite sure how to put the plan together of what they needed. So that's where the cyber strategy team came in and was able to help. So we used design thinking techniques and other accelerators to kind of rapidly build strategic plans and roadmaps that are aligned to clients' unique business challenges and security objectives. So we did that and put together this high-level plan, and the CISO was able to use that to secure funding for the transformation, where the first phase of that was some detailed assessment work across key domain areas like zero trust, cloud, identity and access management, security operations, application security, networks, et cetera. And we deployed a technical team specialized in each of those domain areas to assess the client's capabilities, which was no small feat. The client had global operations and unique kind of siloed security operations in many different geographies around the world. So in each of those domain areas, we assessed the capabilities, and when that was done, we were able to develop a kind of in-depth transformation plan. So, a collection of almost 140 projects roadmapped out over multiple years with all the dependencies mapped and understood. We took that roadmap and helped the client socialize it with, executive stakeholders and folks around the world to get buy-in and support of this upcoming transformation. And now our implementation teams are actually going and executing that roadmap hand in hand together with the client and leading that transformation. So I really like that story because I think it highlights the end-to-end nature of how we do work with clients and demonstrates how our trustworthiness and ability to help clients navigate their most difficult, challenging times can become the foundation for a really deep, trusted partner relationship. And then lastly, the other one I wanted to talk about was a client story that touches on what I think is a really hot area in security right now, which is mergers and acquisition security, or M&A security. So last year, the global value of all M&A activity was about $5.1 trillion, which is up a lot from $3.8 trillion the year prior. And even now, with the economic downturn, we're still seeing really robust M&A activity overall. So when it comes to securing the enterprise, security professionals know whether we're talking about product security, application security, an IT or a business project, whatever, the sooner security gets involved, the better. And M&A transactions are no different. The sooner the CISO or the security team can be involved in the deal, the more likely we are to be able to do the proper diligence, make proper recommendations, and understand the cyber risks of acquiring a company. However, these M&A activities are often very secretive. Negotiations have to be kept really hush-hush. That means really only a tiny handful of top executives at each company are really privy to the deal. So unfortunately, it's often the case that by the time the deal teams are in place and transactions underway, the odds of even having a cyber due diligence finding that's going to kill the deal is pretty low. Cyber is never the star of the M&A show. It's just a fact. However, a recent survey came out and it said that 62% of IT and business decision makers actually regretted going through an M&A deal that had security concerns and kind of disregarding those concerns. And when asked, the major reasons those execs cited for having that regret was lost time and money, right? So having security involved at the front of M&A is really important. And Accenture uses a business-centric framework approach based on cyber due diligence, working with our clients, bringing that industry lens again to the fore, making sure we're doing really meaningful work with each client. So we'll do everything from security log reviews to threat assessments, compromise assessments, evaluating the impact of those findings against the transaction, the acquisition objectives. And then we'll even estimate remediation costs for those findings and present it to the company that's driving the acquisition. So traditional cyber due diligence activities can sometimes be as simple as a boilerplate checklist, a risk assessment checklist you go down. So we think our approach is much more robust and comprehensive. So due diligence is important, right? Got it. Like we have to do our research. That's clear. But what happens when the deal's closing? How do we make sure we're ready for day one when everything combines? How do you combine two security teams, two organizations, two ways of working, two security tool sets? The story here with this global biopharmaceutical company is about exactly that, right? The client was acquiring a large competitor, and they needed to understand not just the cyber risks of that company, but to create a new operating model for the combined security organization. So we took kind of like break it down to basics, a first principles approach, and started developing security strategy for the new combined organization from the ground up. So we wanted to know, what are we going to try to achieve? What are the business objectives we need to consider? What are the enterprise risks we have to consider? What are all the kind of concerns we want to make sure that we're accounting for in our security organization. We built that strategy. Once we knew where we were going and how we were aligning with the business objectives then we were able to kind of create the operating model on how we're going to make that strategy real. So, also as well, during that time, we provided managed security services for their security operations, their identity access management, and also their vulnerability management on their infrastructure. So just again, I think M&A security is kind of a newer area that is gaining traction in the last few years, and just wanted to kind of bring that up as something that we've really focused heavily on in the last couple of years, and I think it's really interesting. So, all right, that's it for me. We talked a bit about our cybersecurity practice, our capabilities, from a career perspective, how we're able to work across areas of security practice, how we take an industry-centric approach to our client work, and a couple of client stories to hopefully bring some of those concepts to life. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I've already seen a few good ones I'm looking forward to answering. Let me know, and we'll get to those in the Q&A at the end. But for now, I hand it over to Mackenzie to take you through a deep dive of cyber and life sciences.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel, and thanks for the great information on Accenture's cybersecurity consulting and as well as those great client examples. So as Rachel mentioned, I wanted to get into a deep dive in the life sciences industry. I think earlier, Raquel did a great job of highlighting that we try to use this one Accenture mentality. And although we have so many different industries and consulting practices and people that are specialized in these areas, we try to bring all of these capabilities together for our clients to give them the best solutions. So I'm coming from the life sciences supply chain space, and I wanted to give a little bit of context to the work that we do in the life sciences industry and how this is applicable in cybersecurity. So you'll see here a ton of numbers, again, a ton of fast facts similar to the slides we had up front on security consulting, but in general, for life sciences consulting at Accenture, we work with 90% of the Fortune 500 life sciences companies to deliver across the board, whether it's in supply chain, R&D, sales and marketing, commercial. We work with teams all across these companies to bring them the best solutions. We have over 20,000 individuals that are aligned to life sciences consulting. And we've also partnered with other ecosystem partners in the areas to bring the best solutions, the best technologies to our clients. Some of our key capabilities are listed here on the slide, and I won't get into too much detail. I do want to focus primarily on cyber resiliency, but our key focus areas are bringing the best patient outcomes. So we have an area called intelligent products and platforms, where we bring the latest technology to these companies so that they can better serve their clients in a space called personalized medicine. We're helping with other new modalities, so whether that's med tech or biopharma, great new technologies that we can bring to this industry. We're trying to make sure the supply networks are patient-centric. So meaning that whether the medicines are personalized, we're bringing new solutions, a lot of great work that we are doing there. Similarly, we are working in the manufacturing space to ensure that it's a digital transformation. So basically, instead of the paper and using the process in manufacturing plants, we're actually creating all of this digitally and bringing that to our clients. And then finally, one of our key capabilities is around resilient and agile supply chains. And this is where we're going to get into the space with cybersecurity, but essentially we want to make sure that these life sciences supply chains can adapt to any of the changing global impacts, industry impacts that are changing. to make the best outcomes and adapt overall. So I won't get into the rest of the facts here, but that's a little bit on the life sciences consulting practice at Accenture. So you might be wondering, how can this apply to cybersecurity? So over the last 2 years, obviously, we've all been greatly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's brought to light a lot of the risks that were in the life sciences supply chain industry across the board. There was a huge demand for the COVID vaccines, which many of our life sciences clients did bring to market in record speed, which was an amazing accomplishment. But at the same time, they had to put a huge effort towards all of this work, basically putting all of their people, all of their resources dedicated to the vaccines. At the same time, we still had to continue producing life-saving medicine and other therapies for patients. So this created a huge issue for a lot of the companies. And you'll see here in that bottom right corner that supply chain disruption was mentioned over 3,000 times in 1 week in 2021 on earnings calls. So I'm sure even just beyond the life sciences industry, over the last couple of years, the supply chain has become quite a buzzword for individuals, whether that's delays in getting your furniture or other products that you're ordering online. I think everyone's been impacted by the supply chain in some way or another, especially within the last couple of years. So what we've tried to do at Accenture is put forth some thought leadership around how we can create more resilient supply chains that can adapt to these major events that are affecting us worldwide, and make sure that in the future we can respond more quickly or just be more prepared in the supply chains and in our manufacturing practices, in our preparation and our resiliency and business continuity planning are all really important things to think about in the life sciences supply chain sector. So with that, we see out here on this slide that it's a new opportunity has emerged for these companies in this post-pandemic world. And the major theme here is around resiliency. So it's essentially trying to protect getting the medicines to patients that need it the most, and considering these 6 key factors. A few of them are not necessarily related to cyber, but if we want to just look at the life sciences industry in general, accelerating product launches, so bringing new life-saving medicines to market quicker. That's one of our key focus areas. Being more agile and responsive to operational changes and impacts, whether that's with suppliers, distributors, the transportation throughout these networks. A reliable and resilient supply network. So that really does hone in on the cybersecurity piece. There is a lot of elements that come into this. A lot of it is around the suppliers that we're bringing in, and we're ensuring that we have the backups. We're going to have the actual supply levels, the inventory levels that we need of these products to be able to respond in the event of major emergencies, major issues, whether it's a pandemic, a natural disaster, a cybersecurity breach. These are all things that happen all of the time, unfortunately, and we need to be planning for that and ensure that we can still meet the needs of patients despite that. I'll quickly go through the next couple, but on the theme of resiliency, we want to make sure there's the enhanced product quality and integrity. So there's obviously a lot of demand for quality, and there's regulating bodies that are beyond just the companies, like the FDA, for example, in the US. So that's another key feature to being a more resilient supply chain. Also, we want to make sure that companies are able to retain and upskill their talent in all of these new solutions and technologies as well. And then finally, unlocking growth for new products and services. So as these companies are coming up with new innovations, new technologies, new services for their patients, they need to make sure they're resilient and protected as well. So that's a little bit more on the theme of resiliency. I have one more slide here that kind of ties it all together with life sciences. But essentially, cybersecurity is a key component in our operations resilience for our life sciences supply chain. So with all of these changing landscapes and disruptions, we need to make sure that it's more than just a business continuity plan, but actually it's the foundation of organizations. So at Accenture, we're helping to partner with these organizations and think through their supply chains end to end, potentially how quickly they can respond in these events or changes to their value chain. So you'll see here we have the different lens that you can look at it, whether it's through an execution based, an operational base, or a strategic base. But we, again, are helping in all of these levels to think at a high level with leadership, set a strategic vision for a supply chain, as well as being boots on the ground, helping with their business operations, their planning, and then quick response as well in the event of a disruption. So that's just a little bit of context setting on cyber resiliency in the life sciences supply chain. What I wanted to also do was go through a quick example of how we brought value and how we brought this to life at a life sciences client. So we helped to proactively protect a top pharmaceutical manufacturer that's one of our clients by assessing their cybersecurity standards of their contract manufacturers and also designing a new operating model for cybersecurity risk management. Just a little context there, contract manufacturers are producing product on behalf of the main manufacturer, and this is a very common practice in the life sciences industry, but these contract manufacturers act as a third party, and essentially any risk that the contract manufacturer has is then put on the main manufacturer because they're going to be supplying their product. So for example, if there was a cyber breach, a data breach at one of these contract manufacturers, in turn, that's going to probably result in a loss of data for the manufacturer, and it's a big concern. So a little bit of background with this specific project. Our client saw a threefold increase in the number of cyber attacks that they experienced in 1 year. And this was outpacing their industry peers. So it was obviously a huge concern for the client leadership. And they came to us and said, please help us with this problem. We need to set up a program. We need to start assessing our vendors, and we need to mitigate these risks. So the client had put together this multifunctional team, and they brought people together from their supply chain group, for their information technology group, and then also their information security group. There was this big program they put together, and they brought in Accenture to do some of the program management and then also the cyber security analysis of all of the contract manufacturers. So the approach here was, as I mentioned, this one Accenture approach. We brought together people from our life sciences supply chain practice, and then people also in our Accenture security practice. And this was a great teaming moment where we brought the best of Accenture and the best of everyone's skills. What we did was conducted a discovery phase, and our cybersecurity professionals had gone through and looked at some key indicators and key risk factors, gave each of the contract manufacturers a score, and then prioritized them around, okay, who had the worst scores, and then also who's the most important to our business based on the number of products they were producing, the amount of spend at the contract manufacturer, and then also the type of products that they were using. So for example, if it was a medically necessary product, we're going to prioritize them because if there was a third-party compromise, a data breach of any sort, this would really impact the patients in the end because they wouldn't be able to get their product that they needed. So after we conducted the CMO discovery phase and we prioritized all of these manufacturers, we then designed and developed an assessment methodology and then also risk mitigation procedures. So our Accenture security SMEs were on the ground going through with each of these contract manufacturers, the results from their assessment, working through the key critical risks, and then also helping them to develop mitigation plans that would rid themselves of the risk, but also prevent risks for the key manufacturer in this situation. In turn, we then documented all of the procedures, all the learnings here, so that this could be an ongoing program for the client, and it wouldn't just be a one-time assessment. It would be something that they could regularly repeat over and over again and protect their business in the future. One of the other key aspects of our approach was that we implemented this data into their overall risk management platform. So the supply chain business had an existing tool that they were using to look into key risk factors across the business, and whether this was related to quality risks, to health and safety risks overall at these contract manufacturers. At first, cybersecurity was not even included in the discussion. So we made sure to build out that capability in the tool, and then to also incorporate all the data and key findings we had through this assessment and risk mitigation methodology. In the end, the outcomes from this program was that we were able to assess 224 of these contract manufacturing entities. This was essentially $2 billion in spend for our clients. So it's a huge portion of their business, and they were really pleased to have the results and have this information firsthand. We used an industry standard, the Healthcare Information Sharing and Analysis Center standard, to create these questionnaires across the board. So not only was it beneficial for our client, this key manufacturer, but it was also beneficial learnings for all of their contract manufacturers. We were able to engage over 60 client colleagues across the organization. So we had operational leads in supply chain, business unit leads, other supply chain leadership, IT leadership, and information security leadership all on board in this program. So not only was Accenture coming together to support with this program, but the client was really bringing together all of their different business functions as well. In the end, we had discovered over 700 critical cyber risks. So a lot of key findings here, a lot of mitigation plans had to be created, and it's still an ongoing effort. There's new risks constantly coming up, constantly being identified. So it's a never-ending cycle, to be perfectly honest, but at least that we have put these processes in place that they would be able to continue identifying, continue mitigating risks in the future. And then finally, we created this operating model. So they had a basis in the future to engage with their security professionals at their company, and also their business and supply chain professionals moving forward, so that it would be sustainable risk management for the business. Overall, like I said, it was a really great experience, great opportunity for Accenture in this one Accenture mindset, and trying to bring together different people and different skill sets. So with that, I know we only have about 9 minutes left, and we did want to leave some time for Q&A. I will quickly run through this example. It's somewhat of a business case, but we did see this with one of our clients where they experienced a third-party compromise at one of their contract manufacturers, which resulted in 3 different sites being impacted. There were 21 batches of product delayed, and then 5 years of data being lost in this situation. There was also a notification to the FDA. So as I had mentioned earlier, a lot of these life sciences companies not only have to report out on their performance, but they're also reporting to governing bodies as well. So a lot of impacts here for cybersecurity in the life sciences industry. You'll see here, this timeline occurred over 30 days. Basically, day one, the contract manufacturer took all of their servers offline because they had known about this data breach, and they had sent the information over to the client, the manufacturer, on day 2. They then started engaging all of the different groups, so information security, supply chain, IT professionals, to get together and to start making a plan. You'll see here, it wasn't really until day 20 that the contract manufacturer and the manufacturer met to discuss all of the issues here. So I think that was a key learning here, that there was quite a bit of gap in time, a couple of weeks between these meetings occurring. So I will say that's one thing that could have been done better. If anyone wants to put in the chat, if there's another approach, if there's another idea that you have on how this could have, how we could have responded quicker in this situation and what could have been done, I would welcome that. Otherwise, we can also jump into our Q&A. I know we only have 7 minutes left. Okay, so I will facilitate the Q&A, and Rachel and Raquel, please feel free to jump in and answer any of these questions. But we will start with the first one. What makes Accenture say they are so happy to pick this person for cyber or any role looking back, maybe after a year or so? Okay.
I think they mean in the hiring process. Like what
Yep.
makes some Accenture think like, oh, this was a great person?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to take that, Raquel.
Okay, I would say from what I've observed, I think the three things that we really try to focus on at Accenture are client first, and then our community, and then our people. So client being, are you helping your clients every day and really like putting yourself in their shoes and trying to deliver the best work for them? People being, helping other people upskill or learn new skills that they may not have. Are you trying to bring on the talent that you already know to Accenture? Are you trying to, bring in people and help support the recruiting team, which does a really great job at Accenture? And then community could be anything from your local office. So for example, I'm in the Houston office and I'm involved in the ERG or employee resource groups as a lead. So there I get to put on events for the people in my office, and then also within the practice or within the industry that you work in. It's important to also help them develop new assets and to make sure that you're, if you hear something like, oh, that might lead to something else, like, are you following through? Are you picking it up and giving it to the right person?
Yeah. Great. Okay, the next question we have is, what are the typical travel requirements for these roles, for example, cybersecurity consultants?
Yeah, I'll take that. I will say things, of course, have changed dramatically. Since March 2020. I used to travel on a weekly basis, and now I might travel once a quarter. But I'll say this is very much like client and project dependent. If you get a client, there's many of them that want to be on site and do things every day. You could travel every week, and you could end up on clients where everything's virtual, right? A lot of it's industry dependent. So in May 2021 was the first time I went back on site after COVID happened with a client, and it was oil and gas, right, in Texas. So they were back in the office in May of 2020. We didn't show up as consultants for a year later. So it's very much industry dependent. I will say life sciences, Mackenzie, I don't know what your experience was, but working with life sciences client the past couple of quarters, they're doing everything virtually. So
yeah. Yeah, I would say it definitely depends on the industry and also the client. I know some people that I work with in life sciences have actually been meeting in person probably the last year and a half, but they were also working on vaccine projects. So it was, very, very high priority, and they were bringing small groups of people in to do the work. Personally, I have been fully remote over the last 2 years, and I actually just over the last couple of months have started to go in person about once a month and see some of our clients. So again, it depends on client preference, industry that you're working in, and it will probably continue to be a mix of in-person and hybrid over the next year, just based on what we've experienced over the last 2 years. Okay, another question. How can we apply to cybersecurity jobs at Accenture? Any requirements or certifications needed?
yeah, I'll take this one. And I know there's a couple questions in the chat about security certifications, boot camps, and applying to jobs. So maybe we can knock out a few of these here. But I would say, first of all, I have a degree in computer science. Raquel has a degree in industrial engineering. Because you don't know what you studied.
Supply chain.
Okay, supply chain. There we go. Right. So maybe we seem like more of a traditional security type of background, having more kind of technical degrees. But in the security practice, we have people from all different backgrounds. We have, partners or managing directors, as we call them at Accenture, that, they studied history in college. I have a couple folks on my team that studied economics. And it's not that, oh, they're not a security person. It's that we really take a multidisciplinary approach to security, and it's those unique backgrounds and perspectives that allow us, I think, to have really interesting ways of working and problem solving. And I'm always surprised when people kind of reveal their backgrounds, like just how different everybody's kind of story and how they got to security was, right? Security, my university offers a cybersecurity degree, but when I was there, and I'm only 35, right, that didn't exist. So you're not going to meet many people who've been in the industry a long time that have a cybersecurity degree, because it just wasn't a thing Most people cut their teeth in like network security in the 90s if they've been around a while. But you definitely don't need a technical degree to work in cybersecurity. I think certifications are always useful. I just picked up my CASSP this year, so I do believe in certifications, and I think they have a lot of value. But I wouldn't limit yourself and be like, well, excuse me, like I have to get the certification first. Don't let it be a roadblock. I think certifications are a great structured way of learning. It's a great way to make your resume stand out, but don't let it be something that you hold yourself back and don't apply to a role until you get a certification. As far as different vendors and certs, I mean, Security Plus is a really popular kind of general starter cert, but I know there's equivalents from other vendors, and I don't think we have a particular preference when we're talking about generalized certifications like that. Of CompTIA versus some other vendor, right? So I think it's whatever you feel is going to be the best fit with your skills to do that. And then around if you've done a boot camp or something, you're thinking, can I apply to Accenture? Lynn earlier talked about how WiCyS has a lot of focus on apprenticeships. Accenture does it as well. So it's kind of if you have maybe a really non-traditional background, or maybe you don't have a university degree, something like that, like Accenture still has tons of opportunities through our apprenticeship programs. We're bringing on folks like that. So if you look up Accenture apprenticeship, you can find information about that, accenture.com/careers. You can find all of our open job listings, or just feel free to shoot me an email and I can connect you with some of our recruiters in the security practice. We're definitely always hiring. And what you see out on the internet on the careers page may not reflect one-to-one what we have going on. So the best thing can sometimes be send your resume over, let our recruiters in security look at it and see if they can, have you in mind for an open role. So, but I love our apprenticeship program. I had an apprentice that I kind of took under my wing in 2019, and she's still working here. And she was still in college, right, when she started with us. So she worked full-time for a year, then she did part-time, just a few hours a week while she finished her degree. She finished up, now she's back to working full-time. She's worked in a bunch of different areas over the last 3 years, and it's just been awesome to kind of watch her grow and develop. So I'm really passionate about our apprenticeship program. So if you or someone might be interested in coming to Accenture through that way, definitely shoot me an email because I would love to talk more about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. I think that answered quite a few of our questions. We had a lot of questions about applying to Accenture, potential jobs, certifications. So I think that was a perfect answer to kind of wrap up and give a good blanket summary of what's going on at Accenture. And like Rachel said, if anyone has further questions, feel free to send us an email. We have our emails here on the final slide, but I know we're at time. I just wanted to say thank you again to Lynn and everyone from WiCyS, as well as all of our attendees today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join and to learn a little bit more about cybersecurity at Accenture.
Thanks,